100 subs. I actually made it. I made it. Yeah, this is the 100 sub episode. Hooray!
Yay!
It's a good celebration. I feel like I didn't really think I'd get to 100 subs that quick. I guess. I mean, like, eventually I think I would have, but like, I don't know. I feel like with the whole show of Grim Captivation starting up, that's what really drew people in. So
yeah.
Thanks to everybody who's checked that out. It means a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, so it's really, really cool. For this episode, just kind of like a celebration, since pretty much my channel began pretty much like for a whole year, I read through, the Silmarillion and other of Tolkien's short stories. And, I read through that whole bunch, and that's kind of how my channel started. And then I kind of just thought about it too, where I'm like, okay, well, if people are interested in some Tolkien stuff, maybe they're intrigued by like paranormal stuff, because a lot of people, I feel like, who enjoy the mythology that Tolkien created and all the world that he kind of crafted, they've dipped their foot somewhat into the paranormal realms and fields and stuff like that. So that means this episode's going to be a bit of both. So it's going to be a combination pretty much some of Tolkien's quote-unquote paranormal entities of his own creation, and I'm actually going to be pairing it up with pretty much a regular paranormal or mythological entity that maybe you guys have heard of. So it's kind of like matching, a character or an entity or a thing from Tolkien's works, and then matching it with a paranormal entity. So that's what this episode's all about. Once again, thank you guys so much. It means a lot to us. It's really, really cool just to see it's over 100 subs. So yeah, it's kind of insane. So all right, so off we kind of go into the episode here. So, and as usual, reading off of a script, and I read off my phone. So just because, I just use docs. So. It's no doubt that the paranormal has influenced great writers of the past. And of course, that my channel is dedicated mostly to Tolkien and his works, I'm deciding to cover over some entities and moments during some of Tolkien's books that highlight paranormal themes, from apparitions to lycanthropy even. Through many dark themes, both exploring Arda, which is my Tolkien podcast, and Grim Captivation, obviously the paranormal podcast, can be linked for this very special episode of 100 subs. So I'll be comparing 5 different types of paranormal entities and bridging the similarities and differences between each one. So obviously you can pick out the differences, but that's kind of what it's all about. Starting the list off, whenever I think of Tolkien and some of his darker entities, my first thought is the Barrow-wights. Now, whoever has read the books probably knows kind of what they are. But for those who have pretty much like only seen the films or kind of completely avoid Tolkien altogether, Barrow-wights are a terrible figure to behold, especially when it did come to the 4 hobbits in the first book, The Fellowship of the Ring. To set up the scene, the 4 hobbits are passing through what's called the Old Forest, and they come across a landmark called the Barrow Downs, where evil spirits are said to haunt the hills. Eventually, this does happen to the hobbits while they travel through the night, and they are captured by the Barrow-wights. So during this chapter, Fog on the Barrow Downs, it gives a brief description of this terrifying phantom-like ghost, I would say. Frodo's knees gave, and he fell on the ground. Nothing happened, and there was no sound. Trembling, he looked up, in time to see a tall, dark figure like a shadow against the stars. It leaned over him. He thought there were 2 eyes, very cold, though lit with a pale light that seemed to come from some remote distance. Then a grip stronger and colder than ice seized him. The icy touch froze his bones, and he remembered no more. So this entity of the Barrow-wight has pretty much the ability to render somebody unconscious at the very touch of its icy cold fingers. That alone, I think, is very terrifying and horrifying.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah, they just kind of like appear, and it's like this big ghastly form, and they have like these skeletal hands, and they latch onto you, and then
you're out.
Go unconscious. You're out. But they don't kill their victims right away. Rather, they kind of use them for their own dark rituals. So right after Frodo's capture, he's inside a damp cavern-like room made of stone where the other hobbits are actually laying unconscious. Going back to the book, it reads here, he turned, and there in the cold glow he saw lying beside him Sam, Pippin, and Mary. They were on their backs, and their faces looked deathly pale, and they were clad in white. About them lay many treasures, of gold maybe, though in that light they looked cold and unlovely. On their heads were circlets, gold chains were about their waists, and their fingers were many rings. Swords lay by their sides and shields at their feet, but across their necks lay one long naked sword. Suddenly a song began, a cold murmur, rising and falling. The voice seemed far away and immeasurably dreary, sometimes high in the air and thin, sometimes like a low moan from the ground. Out of the formless stream of sad but horrible sounds, strings of words could now and again shape themselves. Grim, hard, cold words, heartless and miserable. After a while the song became clearer, and with dread in his heart, Frodo perceived that it had changed into an incantation. Cold be hand and heart and bone, and cold be sleep under stone. Never more to wake on stony bed, never till the sun fails and the moon is dead. In the black wind the stars shall die, and still on gold here let them lie, till the dark Lord lifts his hand over dead sea and withered land. He heard behind his head a creaking and scraping sound. Raising himself on one arm, he looked and saw now in the pale light that they were in a kind of passage which behind them turned a corner, and around the corner a long arm was groping, walking on its fingers towards Sam, who was lying nearest, and towards the hilt of the sword that lay upon him. Suddenly resolve hardened in Frodo, and he seized a short sword that lay behind him, and kneeling, he stooped low over the bodies of his companions. With what strength he had, he hewed at the crawling arm near the wrist, and the hand broke off. But at the same moment the sword splintered up to the hilt. There was a shriek, and the light vanished. In the dark there was a snarling noise. So these sort of entities pretty much rely on dark rituals to have the victim's soul basically trapped in that area with all those cursed treasure laying about them. So that's kind of like that's my favorite paranormal entity of Tolkien is the Barrow-wights. That's my favorite one. Like, out of all the legendarium that he has, even more than Ungoliant, the big dreaded spider of the void, even more than her, I love the Barrow-wights so much. But to pair them, to pair to a specific entity or a ghost with the Barrow-wight could be a little bit difficult to pinpoint, like a very specific one. But since ghosts are pretty much tied to locations, depend on who or what might have been conjured there, or how a long-lost spirit still lingers. There's a popular term among paranormal researchers called residual hauntings, where it's based on the belief that historic items, either of value or maybe even simple personal belongings, can be linked to a soul that is trapped in a specific location. And that's kind of like, pretty much the term goes with the Barrow-wights, because the Barrow-wights were trapped there originally in that location as well, and they're cursed to stay there forever, dragging people in, pretty much. So through this particular item, for the residual hauntings, a medium or a clairvoyant can use their skills and reach out to them specifically, and if they know the name of pretty much the passed on spirit, all the more better to reach out and get to know them. However, it does pose some caution and danger to it. If the deceased was obviously, like a bad person, for example, and could potentially draw in darker spirits to furthermore, possess and haunt locations, and at worst, the people who visit there. Of course, as we visited with the previous episodes, incantations and prayers could be used to, bless houses and people if these dark entities are still present. Sometimes daring people will take cursed items with them and lock them away, while others who have more of a macabre interest will take the items just to see if there is more to it or not. Either way, lingering spirits that have a touch of history in regular items kind of seems plausible enough to me to kind of believe in. I feel like also when people move houses or move apartments, basically move to a different place, all the items that stay put kind of get that sort of vibe as well, where it's not so much a residual haunting, it's more of just a possibility that an unknown quiet spirit just was there for however many years, things like that. There was one time where the apartment right now that we're at, it was first, I think it was in the first couple months when I told you about it.
Oh yeah.
Where I was just laying in bed and I hear the cabinet doors just kind of open and close. And, obviously this is when, I still had Toby,
Just Toby.
our cat, sleeping with me in bed. Because I woke up and he was right there, and the cabinets were opening and closing. And I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of weird, because it's like, new apartment, but like I still brought old items with me. So it's like, I don't know.
And we do buy a lot of vintage.
Yeah, we like our vintage stuff. So I'm like, I can see how that could be possible for me. Second on my list for Tolkien's entities are the infamous ring wraiths, or the Nazgul. These ring wraiths are pretty much have an iconic form, dressed entirely in black robes and wield wicked silver blades. This appearance is only how they look in their corporeal form. In truth, these ring wraiths were actually once men of ancient days, if we're talking about, Third Age, Lord of the Rings era. Basically, way back, when Sauron was actually way more powerful, he gave 9 rings to basically like the race of mankind, which gave them extra wealth and prosperity, but only for a little while, until they slowly began to literally like decay into wraiths, literally walking between both the physical and the haunted wraith realms, dominated and controlled by Sauron. These wraiths ultimately only serve the will of Sauron, since he poured his powers into these said rings of power, all except for the 3 elven rings. In Return of the King, the Witch King, leader of the ring wraiths, taunts Eowyn, daughter of King Theoden, on the battle in the Pelennor fields, saying, "Come not between a Nazgul and its prey, or he will not slay thee in thy turn. He will bear thee away to the houses of lamentation, beyond all darkness, where thy flesh shall be devoured, and thy shriveled mind be left naked to the lidless eye." So yeah, the realm of the wraiths is a terrible thing for them to exist in, and with the will of Sauron always dominating their minds, their tasks also include forcefully pulling pretty much innocent souls to the dark ways of Sauron and his realm, into the wraith realm. So it's just a very scary place. So pairing these ring wraiths with a paranormal entity was easy enough when it came to a name. This, of course, means that they pair with the entities of wraiths. So little is known about, I would say like little is known about wraiths, other than their power and despair. These creatures are pretty much a type of mythological ghost that had a history in black magic and sorcery during its first lifetimes. Wraiths are said to be creatures that are created when something goes wrong in spellcasting. This is most often the result of a witch or wizard who tried unsuccessfully to extend the years of their lifespan, or tried to manipulate time in some other form. The result is obviously very tragic. In some capacity, they do get their wish, that they are immortal beings, but however, their souls are actually taken away, and they are condemned to never reach the spirit realm, which includes, either heaven or hell, pretty much. Wraiths are denied the privilege of going either way, and are forced to pretty much wander between dimensions for an eternity. Wraiths are then, because of that, soulless creatures, and only live on devastating emotions like hatred and despair. There are thought to be several kinds of wraiths. Most wraiths are evil creatures that seek to steal the souls of others. It is said that with a single touch, the wraith is able to drain the life out of a person and steal their soul. Whenever they do steal the soul of a person, the victim is cursed to wander with them for eternity. Unless, of course, the wraith is somehow killed. So, a second kind of wraith is described as being a parasitic kind of ghost demon. These creatures are demons that inhabit any type of empty space until they find a human to meld with. However, unlike most creatures who possess, these wraiths do not make their presence known to the actual victim. It is unlikely the affected person will ever know that they have been possessed by this demon. So this type of wraith is also not believed to hold any sort of magical powers on its own. There are, however, a few cases in which humans develop demonic powers because of wraith possessions. Perhaps the most notable thing about this wraith type, however, is its ability to procreate. So it's very interesting. When a human who has been possessed with a wraith type pretty much mates with another human, part of the wraith will bond to the unborn child. Yeah, The soul of the child melds with the demon, creating a blood child.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So, that's I don't know. It's wild to really think about it. There's also, on the flip side, there's actually a variation of a wraith called a Voror. V-O-R-O-R. Voror. This wraith was sometimes considered a watcher or a warden. This type of wraith follows the soul of a person from the time they are born until the time they die. This is the only type of wraith that is not considered malevolent, because usually wraiths are full of, obviously, malevolence and ill intent. They are consumed by emotions like anger, despair, and hatred. They live to hunt for unfortunate souls to add to, their groups, and wander aimlessly for an eternity, taking away hope and desire to live as they go. So, that's kind of what wraiths are all about, and I think that's very terrifying. I think wraiths are like some of the most devastating, negative, terrible entities out there. If you do believe in wraiths, I suppose.
Yeah.
I guess some people would believe in wraiths.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so, but like their figure and their form are very well known, especially to fictional fields. So, coming back to Return of the King, Aragorn, who is later known as King Elessar, attempts to summon a legion of ghostly soldiers to aid in the siege against a city called Minas Tirith. These ghosts are under a curse where they are caught in an in-between trap. So like the whole can't move on between one world and the next. Pretty much they have to reside in the mountains where they were originally cursed eternally, unless the lineage of the Dunedain comes forth and frees them, but only after this person from the lineage allows them to. From the book, it reads, "Over the land where lies a long shadow, westward reaching wings of darkness. The tower trembles, to the tomb of kings doom approaches. The dead awaken, for the hour is come for the oath breakers. At the stone of Erich, they shall stand again, and hear there a horn in the hills ringing. Whose shall the horn be? Who shall call them from the great twilight, the forgotten people? The heir of him to whom the oath they swore. From the north shall he come, need shall drive him. He shall pass the door to the paths of the dead." So this is kind of like an unbreakable and cursed oath, except for the one very lone exception. So that is, of course, Aragorn, who is, of course, in part of this Dunedain bloodline. And he appears before these ghosts to pretty much recruit them for the upcoming battle. And when they accept and turn the tide of this, siege against Minas Tirith, they are all released from this tragic oath. So I thought that was pretty cool, and it's the ghosts of Return of the King are I think everybody remembers that whole scene where they pretty much charge against the orc ranks with ghosts, and it's just like, well, that's you can't really fight against ghosts that way.
No.
So that literally wins the battle. So, in short, to pair these oath breakers with a paranormal term, the actual regular term of ghost comes up quite a bit, obviously. Ghosts, of course, can be linked to curses and whatnot. Generally, in folklore, a ghost is a soul or spirit of a dead person or non-human animal, to some, that is believed to appear to the living. In ghost lore, descriptions of ghosts vary widely, from an invisible presence to translucent or barely visible wispy shapes to realistic life-like forms. The deliberate attempt to contact the spirit of a deceased person is known as necromancy, or in spiritism as a seance. So you can do either or. Necromancy obviously is the darker side, where you're trying to get some sort of dark spirit to do your bidding, and then there's seances where you're just trying to reach out and gather information. Certain religious practices like funeral rites, exorcisms, and some practices of spiritualism and ritual magic are specifically designed to rest the spirits of the dead. Ghosts are generally described as solitary human-like essences, though stories of ghostly armies and the ghosts of animals other than humans have also been recounted. So who knows? Maybe there's ghost animals somewhere. They are believed to, haunt particular objects, locations, or people that they were associated with in life. A place where ghosts are reported to is obviously described as, being haunted, and often seen as being inhabited by these spirits of the deceased, who may have been former residents or were familiar with the property or the area, pretty much. Supernatural activity inside homes is said to be mainly associated with violent or tragic events in the building's past, such as murder, accidental death, or suicide, sometimes in the recent or ancient past. So it has like a huge range of what that can be. However, not all hauntings are at a place of a violent death or even on violent grounds. Many cultures and religions believe the essence of a being, such as a soul, continues to exist. Some religious views argue that the spirits of those who have died have not passed over and are trapped inside the area or land where their memories and energy are really strong. And pretty much to sum it up briefly, ghosts are considered to be the souls of past people who either haven't been able to move on because of vengeance or terrible tragedy, or they linger because of some sort of like curse. So yeah, that's kind of like the gist of like what a ghost is all about. So fourth on my list is Sauron, actually. However, this isn't, Lord of the Rings' Third Age Sauron. This is actually when he's under the servitude of Morgoth, the villain of the First Age, and also when Sauron's name was Thu, Thu. Yeah, Thu. During the epic tale of Beren and Luthien, recounted in the Silmarillion, Thu, or Sauron, governs over an island called Tol in Garhoth, an island of werewolves. So Sauron himself, during this age, was actually a shapeshifter and was able to transform himself. So when Beren and Luthien are on this island and Beren is trapped, Sauron transforms himself into a mighty wolf, but he is actually defeated by Huan, which is a great hound of Valinor, who came with Luthien to save Beren from the captivity and torture of Sauron. However, Luthien does eventually pretty much let him go. As it says in the chapter, "Then Sauron yielded himself, and Luthien took the mastery of the isle and all that was there, and Huan released him. And immediately he took the form of a vampire, great as a dark cloud across the moon, and he fled, dripping blood from his throat upon the trees, and came to Tar-Nufuan and dwelt there, filling it with horror." So during Sauron's time upon this island, he pretty much switched it from a place belonging to the elves to a land of darkness, where he practices necromancy and rituals. Being able to take multiple shapes and forms, Sauron was a huge threat, even before forging the well-known One Ring. So, it's kind of interesting back then. Matching Sauron's shape-shifting abilities got me thinking of a particular creature called the Skinwalker. Ooh. Yeah. Many people who enjoy delving into mythology have probably come across the Skinwalkers, multiple times. In Navajo culture, a Skinwalker is a type of harmful witch who has the ability to turn into, possess, or disguise themselves as an animal. The term is never used for healers, which is, obviously a huge aspect for the Navajo people. There is like the whole healing aspect and being one with nature, things like that. There are multiple types of Skinwalkers, but the main one is called Yi-Nal-Lushi. Probably saying it wrong, but, it's a hard spelling. And it translates to, by means of it, it goes on all fours. Navajo witches, including Skinwalkers, represent the antithesis of Navajo cultural values. So while community healers and cultural workers are known as like medicine men and women, or by other positive, nurturing terms for the local indigenous language, witches are seen as evil, performing twisted ceremonies and manipulating magic in a perversion of the good works medicine people traditionally perform. In order to practice their good works, traditional healers learn about both good and evil magic. Most can handle the responsibility, but some people can, become corrupt and choose to become witches. Most Skinwalkers' abilities are largely powered by dark rituals and the breaking of native taboos, such as cannibalism, incest, and murder, especially of family members, or are heralded to create them. Each tribe's version differs in the details, pretty much. Mm-hmm. Most Skinwalkers are differentiated from their brethren by being able to take multiple shapes, but are not free-form shapeshifters. So, they can't, some of them can't take whatever shape that they want. That's kind of what it means. And the myths usually describe them as humans who wear only an animal skin or an abomination of human and animal forms. It's like a big glob between the two of them. Mm-hmm. Another legend states that a Skinwalker is or was a shaman in its, human life. And as a rite of passage, they kill their entire family to drain and absorb their souls. So that's pretty dark. They can then transform into any animal that they desire, and any person, although the latter is both very rare and difficult. So basically, like, the whole thing of being able to transform into whatever they want is like the lesser known, I guess, part of it. It has the ability to mimic voices that are familiar to a certain person as a method of luring that person out. And according to Navajo skinwalker legend, they are seldom caught. Those who do track a skinwalker and learn of their true identity must pronounce the name of the evil one in full. Once this happens, the skinwalker will get sick or die for the wrongs that they have inflicted against others. So it's kind of actually like finding out the name of a demon and having control over it. It's kind of like if I want to like compare it to something else. So, and finally, last on my list, I know everybody's waiting for the last thing, is actually an item or a theory, kind of depending on who you ask. In both fantasy stories and mythology, the term of scrying is closely kind of tied together. There are a couple instances in Lord of the Rings where scrying is seen, sort of. The first example that comes to mind for me is when Galadriel is showing the mirror in Lothlorien to Frodo. It says in the chapter, "What you will see if you leave the mirror free to work, I cannot tell. For it shows things that were, and things that are, and things that yet may be. But which is it that he sees, even the wisest cannot always tell? Do you wish to look?" Although scrying is typically seeing things, far away due to using a magical item, like, for instance, in fantasy settings, this mirror reaches into somebody's mind and finds different things. And, when it comes to Frodo and I think Sam during this chapter, it's pretty much negative things or their worst fears of what might happen. And this is also like their fear of what might happen in the future, which ties in closely with scrying. Another example that comes to mind for me are the Palantir stones, one of which Saruman, the wizard, uses in his Tower of Orthanc to be in close contact with Sauron from Mordor. Originally, these Palantir stones were actually taken from Numenor after the tragedy of, the fall of Numenor, where their people pretty much had to escape to Middle-earth, and they used these stones for defense against Sauron in this Second Age, when he was probably the most powerful. However, once the Numenorians lessened in numbers and darkness began to shroud over Middle-earth, the Palantir stones were scattered, and it's not surprising that Saruman ended up with one, because he's kind of like the whole guy. He's the guy with all the knowledge and the wisdom and all that stuff, so he probably knew all about it. So this sort of idea, to use the stone to see and converse with somebody, is more of the popular thought of scrying, or trying to see somebody from far away. Further along in the show, for Grim Captivation, I'll go into a deep dive into scrying and divination, just because it involves its own particular uses in people's lives. So I'll be kind of skimming over this. Because more of a spiritual term, scrying is a form of divination, obviously using a reflective or illuminated surface. Divination is pretty much the art of trying to see into the future with a vague sense of it. And the word scry itself comes from the Old English word discry, which means to see, and more of a combination of to discover something concealed. When scrying, you pretty much stare into a surface like a mirror and wait for images or letters or numbers to appear. Afterward, you can interpret these images or symbols, quote unquote symbols, to get a message. Anything that has a good reflection is used for scrying. Where the most popular image when it comes to scrying is obviously the crystal ball. This stems from fortune telling. Scrying is usually done at night using whatever medium or the item that you're using this practice at hand. Placing candles next to the medium can't be too close, as the user must see vague images. You can't stare directly into the medium itself. Meditating while asking questions during the session is normally done during this process. Finding letters, words, numbers are usually the most important and should be written down either during or after the session, so that the user at the end of the session can jumble the words together and mix them with the slightly blurry and vague images that they could have seen during this. So I've been kind of like implementing the whole concept of, vague results and, simply guessing at what could happen in a scrying session, but I think that's just kind of it. There's no clear results when it comes to scrying. And although fortune telling, is a huge topic of discussion, of whether it's believable or not, it's still considered a lifestyle among many, many people. And, some of them will stick to it for the rest of their lives. So, does scrying work? Maybe we'll find out more when the topic comes around again. So, altogether, the paranormal pretty much surrounds us, whether we accept it into our personal lives or not. For some of us, we do accept it and we delve deeper into its secrets, myths, and fascinations. Others choose to completely avoid it. Some, like Tolkien, decided to create their own mythical entities of horror. Creatures of the night, mystical rituals, and strange magic and dark hauntings, revolving around possessions and curses have always lured people into some sort of grim captivation. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this little 100 sub episode, little special episode, I guess. I mean, I didn't expect it to be, like super long or like to, live stream it, things like that. It's like, I'll wait for that on like on a different day, but like I figured I might as well blend both of the shows together that I've enjoyed. But yeah, you have any thoughts on the entities that I covered? Any one of them scare you?
Nah.
No,
I don't get scared.
Not even the skinwalkers?
Nah.
No?
I would love to see one though.
That'd be terrifying.
I know. I want to be terrified.
But the whole thing of skinwalkers is that they're like violent. And they're out to kill people. You don't want to be around You don't want to be around a skinwalker.
I guess not. That's true. I mean,
maybe you're from like afar and you're like in a helicopter and you're looking down,
looking at one.
Because like that would be terrifying to go, toe to toe against. I mean, obviously probably lose because it's a skinwalker.
I'm but a mere human.
I think those are terrifying, and wraiths are just bad. Obviously,
no.
They're obviously those guys are all like the paranormal side. They're always after somebody's soul, trying to drag them with them, and that alone is pretty terrifying.
Yeah, they're like, if we can't move on, we'll take you with us.
Yeah, but yeah, that's kind of like what I had for this episode. Got nothing else for that? Nothing else to add?
No, I mean a lot of the skinwalker stuff just gave me like memories from like Mexico, since I always hear a lot of spooky stories from over there that my family went through. Yeah. And it kind of sounded similar to that. So. Well,
they probably have their own form of skinwalker. I know that like over there in Mexico, the witches are able to transform into like bats and cats
and birds.
Birds, yeah. I think like coyotes maybe, wolves.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Like yeah.
But more of like the smaller animals, right?
Yeah, they're mostly
so that they can like watch people.
Yeah, over there in Mexico, the way they see the way like you recognize a witch is sometimes in the middle of the night there's just like a ball of fire in the sky.
Oh yeah.
And they're known to be like always like just wandering. And we actually I actually got to, witness once that when I was in Mexico, when I was in the cabins, like there was no one for miles and there was no light. And I don't know, we just see like balls of fire in the sky and I'm just like, what the hell is that? And then my tia was like, oh yeah, those are witches. Oh yeah. I was like, so she's like, yeah, we're
just casually.
Witches. Like, yeah. Witches, yeah.
You know what I think? Witches.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Her beautiful soul rest in peace. But she was like, we are used to seeing them here. She's like, they're not really in in the city. She's like, I have seen them around our house where they lived, and a lot of the neighbors can pretty much vouch for her and say that they've seen them around the neighborhood. And normally when there's a baby, that's when they're close, near. Yeah.
What, just to like curse them or like?
They said that they'd like to like suck their like because babies are purified. They're
like they're young and they're purified.
Yeah, and the witch is like that. So
so they're trying to extend their life then. Basically.
Pretty much, and sometimes she said that when my cousin was a baby, one of the neighbors warned her that the next day, pretty much told the next day that there was a ball of fire on top of her house, and she was like, that's weird because my baby woke up with a lot of bruises, which I don't know how would happen.
That's crazy.
Yeah, And since then, she started wearing protection. She put my cousin protection, and after that, nothing ever happened. They would just be wandering, but
yeah,
that was spooky.
Wow, protect your children, everybody.
Yeah. So back then, every time I would get a bruise, I'd be like, "Oh, witches!
Witches!
Oh, witches!
No.
The witch's brew.
Instead of the witch's bruise, the witch's bruise.
Yeah, the witch's bruise. But,
crazy. Yeah, I know. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of stories.
Eventually, I would like to have like a whole episode dedicated on like the Mexican mythology of like spirits, ghosts, curses, because there's a lot. There's so much.
There's
and there's things with like totems and things like that. Like totems are like one of the darkest items, I feel like. That's something
you just recently learned, didn't you? Yeah, you were so surprised when we watched The Conjuring, and I told you what it was, and I was like, "Why do you think sometimes as us Mexican culture, I can't vouch for all of them, but like for us, we're kind of picky when people gives us gifts, because we've had bad experience where they envy us or they envy my family, and we actually had a bad experience where that thing was actually cursed
and it was released
in our home, and that's a whole story for a different episode. And it was because it was a totem. Someone gifted to us without us knowing. That's
why, like, when I first learned about it, this was like a couple years ago, maybe. Like, just first learning about it, I was like, nah, I'm not going near totems. No, like, as much as I love being fascinated by like, you know, like the darker side of paranormal stuff and curses, I would not go near one.
No, never touch one with your bare hands.
No, and it's just bad news. Like I was watching. I know this is rambling, but this is the 100 sub episode, so it's fine. And we're still on topic, so it's okay. I was recently watching some YouTube videos and of course, you know, I watch paranormal stuff. You know, people who go to abandoned places, things like that, try to find ghosts. There's this one of the guys that I watched recently. He brought, you know, a box that he just brought with. Apparently, that they were like, he was like, oh yeah, like somebody sold it to me saying that there was an evil spirit. I didn't believe him, so I'm taking it with me. And he does open it, and then 10 minutes later, they're, you know, middle of the night. Obviously, they had a bunch of connections with like ghosts, like sending messages through like a flashlight, you know, like on and off, on and off. And then he started getting sick, and then he started throwing up, and then he said that he felt immediately cold, even though in the night it was summertime. It was like in the south of, you know, the United States, so it's like hot, it's humid. So if somebody is turning cold, it's the complete opposite. And cold spots are all obviously spots where you know, spirits are, and I'm like, entities. So it was like the same thing where it's just like you open the box and then the spirit comes out. You might not see it, but it's gonna be there.
Yeah. Just like a couple years ago, you know the famous Munger Road. In Illinois. So we passed through it. I didn't know about it, and right when we passed through it, I felt scared. I started sweating.
Was that when we both?
No, it was before. Like it was way before you. You weren't even in my life. Just by then. It was before I met you. I was with my mom and my sister, and we passed through the road. It was like, it wasn't even dark. It was like around like the evening, right? And I felt scared. I felt anxious. I was sweating, but I was so cold, and I felt so sick to my stomach that I just wanted to puke. And I started crying, and then my mom, she's like, what happened? Like, why are you crying? Is something wrong? And then I'm just like, I don't know. It's just, I just started feeling so many emotions all at once, but I feel terrified. And then my sister was like, oh yeah, you don't know about the road. And I was like, what about the road? And then she told me the whole story. Road, no. And so she told me about the whole Munger Road, how it's haunted, and there's like dead spirits there that just wander. And there's a whole story about it. And and I was so shocked. I was like, I felt so much in me. Like I was like, I didn't know what to do. I couldn't even, like I was scared. I felt so scared. And that
is crazy.
That was the first time I felt something like that, all in one.
And it's weird because it was like it's like a well-traveled road too.
It's busy. It's a busy road.
Because like when we went across it, when I was driving, and you were in the passenger seat, well, I was just like, man, I don't feel right. It's like something like I crossed over, and I'm like, I don't know. Something's off. I just got sad.
And then I was like, oh, let me tell you the story.
It was the same thing where it's just like,
I'm telling you,
it was just weird. That's a place where I actually want to go and like investigate and do my own ghost.
And then there's another one, Penny Road. I forgot which one was it that my brother-in-law went when he was in high school, but he said that.
I thought he said Penny Road.
Was it Penny Road?
Yeah.
Well, he said that they went out there just to drink, high schoolers.
Party.
I think they're cool and party, and he said that he had a really, really bad feeling about it when they got there. There was an abandoned barn. They had to walk a mile or two into the forest, and he said that he felt so scared that he just wanted to run away. He wanted to scream, let's leave, get out of here. But like his friends were like making fun of him, like, oh, you're just a chicken, this and that. He's like, and something about him, he was just terrified that he didn't know what to do other than just stay because his friends were pretty much peer pressuring him.
Even though it was better to run away.
Yeah, and apparently many people died in that barn. I think they were murdered, if I'm correct. Boy,
not the whole thing tying it back, I guess, to the episode.
Yeah, there was death in that place, and it was haunted. It's known to be haunted.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like being tied to a location because of violent past.
Yeah.
Somebody gets murdered or like unjust death. Some of them are bound to linger on. So. Yeah. Maybe eventually throughout the show we'll do like the full length of our personal paranormal stories because we both have plenty. You have more than me.
Oh, I was practically born into the paranormal.
I know.
That's why nothing scares me no more.
Yeah, but
it's not that I'm a tough cookie. It's just I've seen so much and I've been through so much that I'm just like, come at me,
Yeah.
But yeah,
maybe someday.
Yep.
And for anybody watching, I guess this is Toby. See if I can get him to meow. I don't think he ever does. He's being stubborn, but here he is, guys. Say hello to Tubbs. I think that's good for
tonight.
For the 100 sub episode. Once again, thank you guys just so much for all the support. It means a lot to me. So once again, I never really thought I'd get this far. I
told him, it takes time.
I know, you said it takes time.
But you'll get there.
Yeah,
Listen to your wife, people.
Yeah. Words of advice. Coming from me. I was forced to say that. But yeah, so of course, just be sure, obviously, to check out my other stuff, Exploring Arda, which is my Tolkien-centered podcast, where I, pretty much read through Tolkien's works other than Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Obviously, Grim Captivation, I should say our paranormal podcast, because you sit here and listen to me ramble about spooky stuff.
When don't I?
Yeah, that's true. And then I occasionally have my nature hikes called Traversing Through Terra. Just because it's fun, and it's more for like a personal thing of mine. I just like being out in nature, like to log all the different locations that I've been to, all the trails that I've traversed. Peaceful. It's peaceful. I like being out there. So so check out the rest of my channel and comment and subscribe. Subscriptions are really nice to see. But so thank you guys again so much.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Stay spooked as always, or in my Tolkien thing, may the light of Elbereth be with you all. You can do either or. See you guys in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.